Hit it, Phil.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Can it be the breeze that fills the trees with rare and magic perfume? Oh, no, it isn't the breeze, it's Jackson time. La-da-da-da.
From Television City in Hollywood, the Jack Benny program with his special guest, Dennis Day, presented by Lucky Strike.
Light up a lucky, it's light up time.
Be happy, go lucky, it's light up time.
For the taste that you like, light up a Lucky Strike. Relax.
It's light up time.
There's a time and place for everything. And the right time for a Lucky is any time you want to enjoy a great cigarette. And the right place for a Lucky is wherever you happen to be at the time. You'll always enjoy Luckies because Luckies taste better. Lucky Strike is made of fine, naturally good-tasting tobacco that's toasted to taste better. Cleaner, fresher, smoother.
And that's why Lucky's taste better every time.
So make your next pack of cigarettes Lucky Strike. You'll find it's the best-tasting cigarette you ever smoked.
Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lucky Strike program. Well, here it is, February 12th, and just 2 days from now, on the 14th, I'll celebrate my birthday. I was a Valentine. My relatives still talk about the day I was born. Back home, Waukegan, Illinois, how the doctor, the way the doctor slapped me, Slapped me. He was arrested for assault. And the other day I was looking through my album at my baby picture, and there's one picture of me right after I was born. They took this picture, and when you're that young, how your face is so wrinkled. You see, then naturally you grow up and you sort of fill out, you see. This morning I looked in the mirror, and I'm getting young again. But just think, Tuesday I'll be 39. Time certainly flies, doesn't it? And I went to see my doctor to get a complete checkup, which I do annually, you see, and he gave me a blood test and everything. He asked me how old I was, and I told him 39. And he told me that's strange because your corpuscles are 62. I asked him if he meant the red ones or the white ones. He said the gray ones. I didn't know you had gray corpuscles. Yeah, I have it. But I ought to be ashamed of myself. Here I am talking about me, and here it is, February 12th, the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. And there was truly a great man. Anybody who'll walk 12 miles to return a library book and save a 3-cent fine is my kind of a guy. Well, to get on with the show, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should. I would like to have you meet my singing star who's been with me so many, many years, Dennis Day.
Hello, Mr. Benny. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Dennis. Are you all set to sing your song?
Yes, sir, and I think you're going to like it.
Well, good. Then I'll leave you and... Dennis, it's the first time I've seen you with glasses. Are your eyes weak?
No.
Well, are you nearsighted?
No.
Well, have you astigmatism or something?
No.
Well, then why are you wearing the glasses?
My uncle died and left them to me.
It's a shame. Your uncle died. That's a shame.
Yeah, I can't see a darn thing with them.
Of course not. You have to have a prescription to wear. Now take those things off.
Oh, okay.
Dennis, you're such a silly kid, really. Don't you know, just because someone leaves you something in a will, you're not compelled to wear it.
I'm not?
No.
You want to buy a set of teeth?
No, I don't. And look, Dennis, you can stop making up things, too. Your uncle didn't die. I saw him on the street. He was walking down the street this morning.
Well, that was my aunt. He left her his clothes.
Dennis, look, Tuesday is my birthday. I'm trying to feel good. Will you do me a favor? Just sing your song and don't talk. Is that right?
Okay, but before I sing, I have a birthday gift for
Look,
you.
I don't want a birthday gift.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I'd like to give it to you right now. Oh, would somebody please roll that table out here for me? Oh, you're gonna...
Dennis, if this is one of your tricks...
No, honest, it isn't. Thanks very much. You're going to love this.
Dennis! It's me in such a wonderful likeness.
I had it especially made for you. Took 4 weeks.
Gosh, I really am flattered. You know?
Yeah, I got the idea in a museum. You know, they got busts of Napoleon and Caesar and Benjamin Franklin, Lincoln, Washington.
Gosh, going to all that bother. Dennis, that's just wonderful. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it on a pedestal and keep it right in the middle of my living room.
No, in the kitchen. It's a cookie jar.
What?
The ear is a corkscrew.
Look, Dennis.
And you know something else?
What?
The mouth makes a wonderful bottle opener.
Dennis, will you...
And I squeeze oranges right
Now
here.
cut that up! I don't want any presents. Now just sing your song and leave me alone. That's all I want. Cookie jar. These are good.
Falling leaves drift by the window. The falling leaves of blue and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear a winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to
You know, even though Dennis is silly, he has a beautiful voice, hasn't he? You know, so ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, before going on with the show, I'd like to do something that I very seldom do. In fact, I've never done it before. I like to make an exception of this. I usually do not introduce people sitting in the audience. But there happens to be a very good friend of mine here that I'd like to have you meet, one of our great, great stars, most popular and finest actors in the motion picture industry, Mr. William Holden, who is sitting right here. Bill, congratulations on the Photoplay Award the other night. And sitting next to Mr. Holden is the gentleman who is directing him right now in a picture called Toward the Unknown, Mr. Mervyn LeRoy. A wonderful You know, Mr. LeRoy has directed many, many great pictures, and he's just concluded The Bad Seed, which I know you're all going to enjoy. And, you know what, one thing about Mervyn LeRoy, even though, I mean, we've been pals for years, he has never taken advantage of our friendship by asking me to appear in one of his pictures. Those kind of friends I don't need. Now, you know, I'll tell you,
Jack,
somebody else...
Jack,
Oh,
Jack,
Don!
Jack.
Don Wilson. Hello, Don. How are you?
Jack, excuse me for interrupting, but you've heard me speak of my son Harlow, haven't you?
Harlow? Oh, your son, the one who's studying to be an announcer.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And, oh, I'm so proud of him, Jack. He's been working very hard, and yesterday he graduated. And, Jack, I was just thinking, if he could do the commercial tonight, it would mean an awful lot to me.
Well, does he know the, you mean our Lucky Strike commercial?
Oh, yes, that's what. It'd be a big break for Harlow and sort of give him the kind of start he needs for his announcing career.
I see. Well, he knows the commercial.
Oh, yes, of course. I've been rehearsing him for days. He knows every word of it.
Oh, well, then bring him out, certainly.
Oh, gee, thanks, Jack.
You're welcome, sir.
Come on out, son. Harlow, shake hands with Mr. Benny.
How do you do? This is your son, huh?
This is my boy. Yes, sir.
Gee, there's hardly any resemblance.
Well, are you all set, son?
Yes, Dad?
Okay. Harlow, let's have the commercial.
LS, MFT, LS, MFT. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lucky Strike,
Me?
Oh, yeah. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lucky Strike means
Means fine tobacco. Can't you remember anything?
Don.
Look, I've told you this 1,000 times. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. Now, get that through your head and keep it there.
Don, wait a minute. I mean, don't... After all, he's your son. He's trying.
Trying. All right, go on, Harlow.
Okay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lucky Strike is the only cigarette that's
toasted to taste better!
Oh, yes, that's toasted to taste better. So for the taste that you like, light up a Lucky Strike, the cigarette that is so round, so firm, so fully packed, so free and easy,
So free and easy on the draw! Gee, I could ask 100 people on the street and they'd know that. You've got a brain in that skull of yours. Now use it. What is that, a head or a cookie jar?
Don, you're embarrassing.
Oh, you stay out of this. And as for you, Harlow, as for you, you're going home. And you're going to be punished. From now on, no more car, no allowance, no movies. And I'm going to cut you down to 5 meals a day. Get out. You and your 300 pounds of blubbers. Get out.
Gee, I didn't know that Don had such a temper. You know, I always thought that fat men were jolly. Let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, there's someone else in the audience whom I'd like to introduce. You know, every actor has his favorite role, every singer his favorite song, and, well, every comedian probably his favorite television show. And my favorite, the one I enjoyed doing the most, was the one I did a few weeks ago with the 2 live dummies, Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snerd. And the lovely guest star who was on that show is sitting here, Miss Frances Bergen. Will you take it up? He was so good on that show, too. Bill Holden, did you, you didn't, you saw that show, didn't you? The one I did?
No, I didn't, Jack.
Oh. Well, it was very good. Francis was just wonderful. Francis, why don't you come up on the stage and let Bill see you, huh? Oh, come up just for a second, let everybody. Come on, let's get her up on Come on. Francis, I must tell you once again, you were so wonderful and so lovely on that show. And you know, it caused a lot of talk.
Well, thank you, Jack. I enjoyed doing it. And you know what's happened since then?
What?
Well, I did a show with Dick Powell on Four Star Playhouse, and just recently I had an offer to make a picture at 20th Century Fox.
No kidding.
Yes, so you see, you really discovered me.
I mean, I discovered you?
Sure.
Well, heavens to Eddie Cantor. Francis, that's wonderful that you're going to make a picture at 20th Century Fox. You know, I haven't made a movie in such a long, long time. Gosh, it's been years, not since... Well, anyway, it's been a long time. And, you know, I know a lot of people at 20th Century. I was just wondering, as long as you're going to make a picture there, do you think you could talk to them? And then maybe I could get a part in it, you know, to play opposite you in this picture.
Well, Jack, this is a dramatic story, a dramatic picture with a romantic love story. Mm-hmm. And if you played opposite me, you would have to be my lover.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, in the first place, you're a comedian, a funny man.
Not when I'm necking. No, Francis, you know, I've made a lot of pictures, and good ones, too, like George Washington Slept Here, and To Be or Not to Be, and Man About Town. And yet, for some reason or other, the studios have never been able to grasp the real me. I mean, I've never been able to achieve the success that, let's say, Clark Gable has had, or Robert Taylor, or William Holden. Now, why is that?
Gee, Jack, I've been in show business such a short time, I don't think I'm the one to ask.
Oh, no, sure you.
Well, naturally, I've seen a lot of pictures, and being a woman, I might be able to tell you the reason. But, well, I don't know if I should.
Oh, I don't mind. Really, I don't.
Well, now, please don't misunderstand me. I think you're very clever, and you're very talented, and you have a lot of charm.
I know.
Maybe you lack the most essential thing that's necessary to become a success on the screen.
I lack?
Yes.
What?
Sex appeal.
What are you laughing at? Francis, you mean I have no sex appeal?
I'm sorry.
You're sorry. I'm sick about it. Well, look, Francis, don't you think that if I were given the opportunity to play that kind of a part on the screen, I could be another Gable or a Taylor. I mean, a Robert Taylor, a Taylor I can be. I know. or a William Holden.
Well, Jack, let me put it this way. Suppose you weren't Jack Benny. Suppose you were Robert Taylor. Or Mr. Holden. Now, if you were William Holden, do you think I could stand here so coldly? So calmly? Just talking to you?
You couldn't,
Oh, no. Why, if you were William Holden, I'd want to come closer to you, like this. and maybe caress your cheek like this. Why, I'd even want to kiss you like this. Now, you see, that didn't affect me at all.
That's funny. I'm a wreck. Well, Francis, I know what you mean, but let me explain something to you. You see, when you mention William Holden, you see, you see him on the screen where he's playing a part, he's acting, he's giving a performance. Now, I can prove to you that sex appeal or being a lover is merely a case of, well, it has something to do with the environment, atmosphere, maybe the story of the picture. I can prove it to you.
You can?
Yeah, now look, I want you to close your eyes and forget that I'm Jack Benny. You know, just close your eyes and think of me as, well, Holden, William Holden. And we'll play a love scene, a really emotional love scene. I'll prove to you that my kiss and Holden's, it's the same thing. Would you like to try it?
What do we talk about?
Oh, anything. Just impromptu. Any kind of a love scene. We'll just make it up. I'll start it. Now, remember, I'm William Holden. I'm not. Just a lovely, nice, whatever you can think of. Not. Could we have just a little soft music, Malin, with this, please? Remember, I'm Holden. Oh, Francis. Francis.
Oh, my darling, it's really you. And I thought you were leaving without saying goodbye.
Oh, my poor dear, I should have told you. But I'll be back. I'll be back even though 1,000 miles shall separate us.
Ah, cruel fate, to meet and part with nothing left to cherish but the ecstasy of love's first kiss.
Love's first kiss. Kiss me, my sweet.
My darling.
Kiss me.
To think that we may never meet.
Kiss me.
To think...
Kiss me.
Hold it. Now, just a minute, Jack. Just a minute.
Bill. Wait a minute, Bill. Well, look, I'm right in the middle of a love scene here.
I'm sorry, but look, I sat out there and took all I could take. And believe me, as a friend, I just had to get up here and help you. Now, first, really about that dialogue.
I'll be back.
Where are you going?
No place. I was going home.
And look,
like
Jack, you were so nervous. Huh? You were so nervous, and you're so pale.
Well, if you had gray corpuscles, you'd be pale.
Jack, I just want to say one thing. You know, making love on the screen is my business. I get paid for it. So, if you'll just stand aside, I'll show you how this thing should be done, and then you can take over from there. Now,
Bill,
we haven't met. I'm Bill Holden.
How do you do?
Now, you just watch this, Jack. Everything will be okay. Now, Francis, would you give me that line, the one you just gave Jack?
Well, if I can remember it. Oh, yes. Ah, cruel fate, to meet and part with nothing left to cherish but the ecstasy of love's first kiss.
Kiss me, my sweet.
back to these guest stars. We'll be back in just a minute, but first, here's a word to cigarette smokers.
Light up a lucky.
It's light up time.
Be happy, go lucky.
It's light up time.
For the taste that you like, light up a lucky strike.
Relax.
It's light up time.
There's a happy way to make ends meet. Put the end of a match to the end of a lucky and puff. That always adds up to real smoking enjoyment. Why? Well, first, because Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And then this fine, good-tasting tobacco is toasted to taste even better. Cleaner, fresher, smoother. So anytime you want to lighten a problem, light up a Lucky.
For the taste that you like, light up a lucky strike.
Right now.
Light up a lucky. It's light up time.
Francis, this was such a nice surprise and everything. I want to thank you for being on the show again. And Bill, thanks so much for coming over.
Jack, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Jack.
Good
Bye.
luck. Good luck. Ladies and gentlemen, Huh?
Jack,
What?
my ring?
Oh, You can see anything, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to say that...
Mr. Benny.
Dad, I thought you went home.
Well, I was, but I thought maybe you could help me. You see, I got an invitation to a wedding, and I don't know how to get there. Which way to Monaco?
In the first place, it isn't Monaco. It's Monaco. And in the second place, the wedding isn't until April, and the invitations aren't even sent out yet.
Well, I got my invitation right here. Look.
Dennis, that's not Monaco. That's Monica, Santa Monica. The wedding isn't in Europe. It's at the beach.
Oh, then I'll have to take a different bus.
Yes, I would. When you get to the beach, keep going. Well, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to watch Ann Southern next Sunday. And then in 2 weeks, I'll be back with Bob Crosby and Mary Livingston and Rochester and Don Wilson and my whole gang. Thank you very much.
Filter smokers, it all adds up. Just as 1 and 1 make 2, pleasure and taste make Filter Tip Tarleton the best in filtered smoking. All the pleasure comes through. The taste is great. Filter Tip Tarleton smokes milder, smokes smoother, draws easier. And Tarleton's filter is pearl gray because it contains activated charcoal for real filtration. So when you smoke Filter Tip Tarleton, all the pleasure comes through. The taste is great.
The Jack Benny program has been brought to you by the American Tobacco Company, America's leading manufacturer of cigarettes. The Jack Benny program has been selected for viewing by our armed forces overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Don Wilson. And here is a reminder from the American Tobacco Company. A killer may be stalking your family. He's public enemy number 1. His name, heart disease. Strike back. Fight heart disease through your heart association or send contributions to Heart, care of your post office. Help your heart fund by helping your heart. Thank you. Be sure to watch Jack Benny's show in 2 weeks when he'll have as his guests Mary Livingston, Bob Crosby, Rochester, and yours truly, Don Wilson.
Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. We have another episode of the Jack Benny Show for you from the 6th season of the show. I can't remember the exact date. Maybe somebody's got it. I don't know.
February 12th, 1956.
Very good. Oh, yeah, because he talks about his birthday, right? And so he says his birthday's coming up and things. But we have Terry Phillips here with us. Hey, Terry.
Hello.
Hello. and in his cool hat. Gotta love that. And actually, I can join you. So there we go. Very good. Now the top guys have hats. I don't know where everybody's located in your screens, but on my screens, Terry and I are next to each other on the top here. And then we have John and we have Kathy. John Henderson. Hey, John, how's it going, man?
I wonder if I could find a hat. I'm sure I've got one around here.
You must have a hat. And Kathy's got a hat now. Look at this.
All right, I got a hat. I got a hat.
You got it going on, man. This is awesome. This is the special hat episode. Backwards. See, that doesn't, you can't really do these backwards. This is kind of strange. I don't know. It doesn't, I could do
I don't
that
wear
thing
hats
look
often
like
because
paper,
it's such a
paper to
shock
your
when I
paper.
You take it off, I get hat hair.
When I take it off and I've got no hair, it's just a shock to people.
Oh my gosh. John doesn't have hair. I've never noticed that. I just enjoy what I have left. It's like, please stay for a while. Anyway, but let's get into this kind of different episode. It's I'm really pretty sure this is the first time I ever saw it was for us getting together, but it's got pieces like many Jack episodes where they grab from other things, and so we'll talk about it. The number one thing this episode has for me, okay, this is just me, but it has, and we did watch one that we already presented before, and I'm like, oh, well, that was a mistake. But in this one, this does have Don and his son at one point, yes? Good. Just making sure.
Well, not his
the
son,
other
an
episode.
actor.
I'm going to talk about the other episode now. This was my favorite bit of Don and his son that I've ever seen, and I never liked Don's son. Maybe it's because Don's son really doesn't do much. It's mostly Don's acting, but I just enjoyed Don just eating up the scenery with what he needs to do in this, and just getting so mad at his son, and it gets a little into that kind of Office thing where it's almost so realistic. It starts to make you feel a little cringy, like, oh, he's really getting after his son, and you have to remember that's just an actor. It's fine. It's like it, but Don takes it so hard and talks about his son. You have a brain in your head, or whatever he's going to say about it, the whole thing. So I love that little piece. And this is a performance. This episode is definitely a bunch of little pieces all strung together, more or less. And there's I'm sure other folks will point out the other cringy stuff in this episode, that there's definitely some where you go, was that the best choice? But we'll go around and let me go over to Kathy. Kathy, what did you like about this episode?
Right. I've not seen it before. To me, it's a fascinating little episode, kind of like leftovers on a Sunday night, and you're scrounging around the back of the refrigerator for stuff that's like 3 weeks old. And what can you make of this stuff? And yet he manages to pull it together so well, from ancient jokes about, Abraham Lincoln to, they said, the bit with Frances Bergen, Edgar Bergen's wife, who looks just like her daughter, Candace Bergen. Fabulous. I believe that some of their routine, they're redoing a part of where Marilyn Monroe says, "Oh, here's why I can't fall in love with you, Jack," and he's even tasting, licking her hand, holding her hand in his mouth the same way.
Yes.
And he brilliantly uses William Holden, bringing him up from the audience, but in actuality, I believe redoing the scene with Frank Sinatra and Faye Emerson that's on his second live show, which we've never seen, which it's almost impossible to see a copy of.
Right.
And so why not redo it?
Yeah.
So again, sort of making hash out of all the leftovers in the refrigerator, and I think it works. So.
And was this a live episode or a filmed episode?
Yes, it was. And the fact that this one never even gets behind the curtain. That's
okay. My question was live or filmed, and you said yes, it was. Well, of course it was live or filmed, but which one was it?
Live.
It was filmed in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Because usually when it brings parts back from an old show, it's to film it, right? And usually, John, what stood out in this one for you?
Well, I agree. I agree with both of you that this does seem like a bit of a hash episode, and it's hard for me to separate, my to come to this as though it was the first time that I've seen a Jack Benny show. I think if it was the first Jack Benny show I'd seen, I think I would have a different reaction. I think I would love it because it's got a bunch of great jokes and bits and things. But being such a Jack Benny fan, I have seen pretty much all of these bits before. So some of them come later, but they're maybe used here. But I don't think any of them are used here first. I even think like the idea of like, oh, well, why wouldn't I be a great actor? Well, you don't have sex appeal. I feel like they've been doing that since like the 30s, and they'll continue to do it through like the 60s and everything like that. So it's definitely well worn. But I mean, it's still a lot of fun, like the cookie, or maybe that's a spoiler, the bust bit I've only seen once before, and the Don, like you mentioned, the Don Wilson bit is not overdone, and I do think, like you said, Buck, it's so uncharacteristic for Don that it's hilarious. That's not this kind of thing that Don normally does, and so that that kind of
that was
doing
my
something
biggest
different.
laugh out loud in this episode was that I just couldn't seeing Don just go. And we've talked about it before. I laugh more at Don in the bits they give him sometimes than anything else, just because they're always out of left field, and Don just adapts to whatever it is. I mean, if I'm the writers, I'm going, I could pretty much write anything, and Don will somehow make it fit with his character and make this work. So it makes you want to do outlandish things with Don and see how he's going to pull it off, because they're almost never in character. They're always completely, as far as we're used to seeing Don, way out of character, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that Jack Benny enjoys the bit with bringing up a beautiful lady and then getting shot down a little bit, and that whole, or being upstage, that whole thing. I think he does that a lot when he does his live performances. And I feel like, again, I think he does it because he enjoys it, and because he enjoys it, some of that comes across and it's fun to watch as an audience. It is a bit odd, though, that he's presenting this woman as Edgar Bergen's wife, so we know she's married, and so for that reason, it also doesn't quite, work as well
That's
as
what I was
some
going
of
to
the
say.
other.
The cringy part is about this is it's cringy enough a little bit that he's so much older than these women always when he's doing this.
Yeah.
But to have one that's married, known to be married, we know who her husband is. We've seen the two of them together, even on Jack's show.
Yeah.
And then to do this, it just then Holden's kiss lasts forever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is truly an old routine, because he used to do it on stage. You're right, and he would have Phil Harris and Marilyn Maxwell do that.
Right.
But just as you all say, these other women who are involved are usually known as single, whereas Francis is very much married, and so.
Yeah. So I mean,
if I was married to her, I'd feel a little weird watching this episode with her. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'd be like, oh my gosh, they chose to go there with you. Okay.
Yeah, but I will say sometimes doing a performance that they've done many times works better than other times, especially technically on television or live television. And this did seem very, like, it's supposed to seem spontaneous, like, oh, who do we have in the crowd? And I do think that was pulled off well. And, it almost seemed like William Holden, until he comes on stage, you're not quite sure whether he's in on it or not.
Right.
So I thought that was done pretty well.
And
whenever they point things out in the audience like that, which he does, and he probably didn't need to say, oh, this is something I hardly ever do, because he does do it from time to time. But a lot of times they have a little bit that's right from the audience where they're heckling him or saying that they owe him money, or he didn't get their laundry done, or whatever it is going to be. And then they stop, and then they're done, and they just sit back down in the audience, and we don't see them maybe till the end of the show or something. It was interesting having him. It felt like that, and yet later on they both get pulled up at one point or another and become the major part of the last third of the show or whatever. Terry, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, while it's true that some of these bits did seem familiar to us, at least one of them was familiar to us, but it came from a subsequent show. John, you referred to that bust joke.
Yeah.
That actually was reused. So this is 1956. It was reused in 1964. And that was also a live show. I don't know whether the writers were asked to reuse some of these things, whether they had to fill a hole. You just never know with, how a bit ends up in a show. But one of the things I've always liked about the Jack Benny Show is the familiarity of the running gags. And so while, some of it was kind of cringy or some of it was not all that original, for me, there's a certain comfort factor in anticipating where a bit is going to go, particularly if they can put a twist on it. And I thought, even though these were familiar, I thought there was enough of a twist that it was worth watching again. There was one current event reference that I picked up, and that was referring to the forthcoming marriage between Prince Rainier and Princess Grace Kelly, which happened in April of 1956.
And so that's the wedding in Monaco that he's referring to.
That's right. Yeah. And then the only other thing that caught my attention was that, as with many of his shows, this episode was sponsored by Lucky Strike, and there were Lucky Strike commercials at the beginning and at the end. And the very, very last commercial was for Territon, which was another American Tobacco Company brand. And then the very last thing you see is a public service announcement for the American Heart Association.
Well,
okay, fine. In 1956, there wasn't a big deal made about the impact of smoking on heart disease, but we all know. And so, okay.
Well, and speaking of Territon, in radio, they have one of my favorite ads ever. And I mention this every once in a while, and some of my longtime listeners will go, "Oh, I know where he's going with this one." They were apparently the brand that, or at least a version of them, sounds like maybe given away to the armed services members and
in
things.
Hospitals.
And they
veterans in hospitals got cigarettes.
Okay, and they had cork. Filters on them, I believe, and so, but they were cheap or whatever, and so they were not high-end cigarettes at all. And so when folks came back, they thought, okay, everybody's going to switch to something else, a higher brand. But a lot of them stuck with Territon because they were used to them and things. Mm-hmm. So Territon comes out with an ad that is Territon cigarettes. There's something about them you like. There's something about them you like. It's like, and then you expect the next line to be, we have no idea what it is, but there's something about them you like. So keep buying them, okay?
Didn't they also have the ad that said, I'd rather fight than switch, and they'd have somebody with a black eyes?
Yeah. I just have never heard anybody just sort of, it's like the advertising company just gave up and just like, I don't know. There's something about them people like. And we'll just, let's just say that in a serious voice and it'll be fine. So,
people are dying to smoke our brand.
Yeah. Well, the other piece I was going to point out of this thing that I don't remember, he's probably done it a million times and you guys know it. It's just that, I don't know, it never stuck out to me as much as this one maybe, was the whole, during the kissing bit, the part that saves it for me is the whole jewelry piece of it. And I don't want to explain it more than that, but I just thought, it made total sense for Jack's character and everything. And it just added a sense of strange humor to this whole thing. And then I like how at the end, she asks him to give something back, and he has to give that back. And I just thought that was a cute piece. So there's always, Jack always knows how to save something that's pushing it too far or whatever. And there's always something. Yeah.
And I'd like to add that one way he does switch something up, as we've been talking about, and make it new. I was really impressed with the way he used visually and the multi-camera approach. Every time he would visually throw shade at William Holden out in the audience. So we're constantly aware that he's out there in the audience.
Yes.
And so he doesn't even have to say anything, but it's like, I just thought that you couldn't have done that on radio.
No.
Otherwise he'd had to go and ho, and I just hooray for a way of adapting your humor to a visual medium. And it also wouldn't have worked that well on the big stage show. If you've got 3,000 people in the audience, they couldn't see that, but the close-up camera, because they would cut away to Jack, as I said, just throwing the shade at Holden, and I thought it was cute and worked well. So.
Well, and that's one of the beauties of this particular episode. It's a very intimate episode because, like you say, everybody's right up front. There's no deep work on the stage or anything.
Even Dennis is just sitting on the edge of the stage singing one of his better songs. Falling, the Falling Leaves. Well, very, very much pop music of the day. So.
And I love how like in many episodes this season are the sitcom episodes. And the sitcom episodes, I've said before, you could do it with Lucy and Desi. You could change, you could put Burns and Allen in there. You could do a lot of things and it would work. So he can kind of be on autopilot. I mean, Jack never is really on autopilot, but he doesn't have to do as many of his looks, as many of his things. With an episode like this, Jack has to be high octane Jack. Jack's got to be on the whole time. I mean, this show doesn't, every shot is Jack and somebody or just Jack. And so he's just got to be on the whole time. And he really does do a good job of turning up. We have probably some of his longest pauses ever, and they work. They really work. He works the pause so well. I'm going, okay, he can't go much longer than this, and he does. And he'll throw in like a little eye. His eye will tweak out something, or he'll look like. Then all of a sudden he turns a little more to look at Holden a little straighter or whatever, and so he can push that pause even further than you think he can. So as a Jack Benny fan that's just watching him and what he can do as an actor and what he can pull off, this is a great episode to see him have to really work that stage and things in order to keep it entertaining, because he can't rely on just the creativeness of the script or the storyline. It's got to be him.
I would like to add that most people refer to Your Money or Your Life as being the iconic example of his timing and long laugh that it got. I think this episode is even better than that because of what you've just been saying. Those long takes in that one bit, and Kathy, as you pointed out, he did those asides to the camera. I think it is maybe the best example of Jack Benny's timing.
You're right, because it's live. He doesn't have time to do it again, or he doesn't have the digital tools you had in your imaginary theater.
That's right.
License something or short
one and
something.
done, as they say.
Yeah. So while we started out,
I was going to say Francis Bergen does such a brilliant job in here of the whole, when it's that thing where he's expecting the kiss or wants the kiss, and she avoids the kiss so many times, and she, like so many of the female actors that act with him in this same bit, can't keep their straight face because it'd be so hard because he's doing such a funny job of trying to get that kiss, and he can't get that kiss. But this, probably that back and forth, might be the best I've seen of any actress working with him in this particular point. And my gosh, John, I don't know how many times we've seen this in different things. I'm thinking it's got to be close to a dozen or something between every time we see this in the specials, in the television show. It's just we see it over and over again.
Yeah, and I do think that she did an excellent job. And as you were talking about visual humor, I think that her floppiness is done really well. That's really believable. You can see why after the first episode that she was on that they would want to bring her back, and obviously they got a good response from the audience and critics.
Right. It sounded like they were trying to give her, I mean, that she was for a while trying to get her own career.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that Edgar wasn't all that approving. He wanted her at home, I think.
Or maybe it was Charlie.
It could have been this show that ended it for her. It could have been like, okay, you're done. You're done. You got two guys kissing with you, making out my wife, like in national television.
Do you all
done.
remember? Do you all remember a sitcom in the late 50s or early 60s called Love That Bob with Robert Cummings?
Yeah.
He plays a photographer, and they do this bit a lot. He is watching two people kissing, and he's getting, really close and standing beside them and behind them and really trying to micro-examine the kiss. I think that had to be influenced by this episode.
I think so. A lot of Bob's Cummings humor, a lot of folks grab from Jack, and I think Bob Cummings did a lot of that observational type of humor that works so well for Jack, that we've seen lots of other people emulate over time. He was just one of the early ones, with of course, the most obvious being the one that they saw just a few weeks ago when we presented Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson's first appearance on Jack's show was in this season we're presenting, and though we recorded it ages ago, it's watching Jack and Johnny together is just amazing. I'm surprised he didn't have, I don't think he ever had Bob Cummings as a guest on his show, but he could have. It would have been interesting to see him and Jack together. But anyway,
one thing that we often forget, or at least I forget, is that there was no on demand. There was no even like DVDs going back and watching old episodes. So we've seen these over and over again because, maybe particular episodes come up as like better episodes, or we only have certain episodes, or we can jump through time. We can watch an episode from the 60s and then watch one from the 50s. Whereas if you're waiting 10 years, you're going to forget that happened. So, most of the time these were just one and done. And so to be able to rewatch an old bit was probably like a bonus if they even remembered it at all.
Oh, agreed. And thank you so much for pointing it out, John, because I've forgotten. I wanted to mention, because what our audience gets is different than what we get.
Of course.
Because what we do, just by the way we've done these, I kind of picked out some of the best episodes I thought or the most interesting for us to talk about when we started doing these podcasts and these introductions. And so we'll get where I present an old one of us that's old from a couple years ago. For maybe I have 3 episodes in a row where I do that, and then we're on again, a new, fresh like this. Now this is 2024, so this is fresh one. It's May 4th. May the 4th be with you. I've got my R2D2 on here somewhere. Anyway, but our folks watching it on YouTube get to watch sequentially one episode after the next. This season, like I've said earlier, has almost every episode that exists of the season, which you never get with Jack. You're always missing some. And so they can see a live and then a filmed and then a live and then a filmed and then maybe a couple films and so they can watch the progression. Then they have Johnny Carson on it. Then they have all these folks. This season is insane in its quality, and just being able to see Jack and what he would do from week to week, like you would in the 1950s, except for maybe not having to, where maybe they had to wait 3 weeks to get the next Jack episode. Now they can get it every week. I present every week, but the comparisons they can do, and they're not jumping up to 1965 and then back to 50 and then to 53. We're presenting, the episode in 55, the next episode in 50, or the next episode 50, or 50, we're just going through the season. And what's lovely coming up, as I was just looking through them last night and organizing things, this season, next season, the next about 3 seasons, they're pretty solid. I mean, every once in a while we'll be missing an episode or two, but more than not, we'll be presenting them sequentially the way they were originally aired. This just happens to be some of the seasons where we get the most episodes that were put in the syndication package and so forth. So there's just more available to us. And I think it's exciting to be able to watch and experience the growth and the times with Jack. The Another episode that we were going to present, but we already presented it with Rochester's son, Eddie Rochester Jr. Was a filmed episode where Mary's on it and she's singing with Bob Crosby, and Jack's singing part of the time, and it's just such a treat. And that's from this season as well. I didn't realize it, but we had so many episodes this season that have had huge amounts of the cast on them that we don't normally get. And I'm like, why is that? Well, it's the radio show stopped production last in our time frame, like last year. So this would be the first season without any radio shows. So he's probably feeling like, oh, I should bring on more of the radio cast and things. And so we have more of these cast episodes that we love so much. And then we have an anomaly like this. It still has some of the cast members. It still has Dennis. It still has Dawn. But it's just really cool when we get Dawn, Dennis, Jack, Bob Crosby, Mary, all in the same episode. It's just a treat we hardly ever get. So it's such an awesome thing.
Daryl, I completely agree with you and John. Perhaps we could look in retrospect that that Jack Benny had the perfect production mix of he's only having to do twice a month. So it's not the grind of 39 episodes a year. They now can film in the summer. While this episode we're talking about was live, the next one where Rochester falls asleep during the show had been produced, actually taped that summer in June. Right. So you had maximum flexibility to get your former cast members back and to come up with, and so, but still, he's still mixing in some live shows with some pre-recorded shows. So, he gets the most amount of time, seems to me, to do creative things.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I really think I would have loved to have seen conversations between Jack and Mary in 1960 when she decides she's not going to be on the show anymore, because that is the exact same time that he goes and starts doing full seasons. So I'm sure that their conversation would have been like, Jack, you need to stick to your guns and keep on doing these seasons like we've been doing them, and I'll be on the show sometimes. But if you're going to go for 25 episodes, you're going to be so big. I'm done. I'm out, and it could easily be a conversation that would go that way. And Jack probably felt so much pressure at that point. He's the only, as far as I know, at that point, he's the only show on television that's not running regular seasons where he's only doing 15 episodes a season or whatever. I think at the end, maybe he cranked it all the way up to like 18 or something, but he still wasn't at the full seasons. And then they flipped the switch, and from 1960 on are doing full seasons, but Mary's not on the show anymore and so forth. So they just become a different breed of show. And we'll talk about that more as we hit that. But gosh, what an interesting time that we have coming up for us. And I just love that we do these together. I love that we can experience these. Hey, I remembered. I've been wanting to remember this for the last, I don't know, 5 of these we've done live. And I think maybe I mentioned it once, but if you like us doing this and presenting these weekly to you, please join our same crew, more or less, a little less with John. John's there sometime, but it's definitely Terry and Kathy and me and Vincent Longo a whole bunch of the time. We've started presenting on every Wednesday. We have Wells Wednesday, where you can tune in, watch us on YouTube, because we've never done the video before. We always presented as audio. So you can watch us, and then we go into an Orson Welles commentary where Orson talks for 15 minutes from 75-ish years ago. And they're just so interesting, the topics he talks about and things. And if you get into it, especially when we get into kind of deep philosophical discussions and you like that, that'd be perfect for you over there, because we have those all the time on politics at the time, everything that was going on in history, all of that piece. And they are so much fun to do. So please join us. We have probably, I think, 11 that I have up now, and I just keep adding a new one each Wednesday. So at the same time, we premiere them at 4 p.m. Pacific, just like we premiere these at 4 p.m. Pacific on Sundays, but those are on Wednesdays, and 7 p.m. Eastern, right? Yeah. And so just fun to present those. We actually have recorded a few new ones here in the past week. I think the last one I put up was the first one of those new ones we recorded, and so you get a chance to see that. Terry was famous for saying when we were recording those, Daryl, you're going to have to do a lot of editing on these. But I don't know. I just kind of let us go, and I think people have fun listening to us, so it's all good. And like I say, John's there sometimes, so it's always good to have John when he pops in. So fun stuff. Anyway, we will let you guys go and enjoy this very interesting, very different.
There you go.
Episode of the
Daryl, I would say that when we started this intro, we were going, oh, it's 3 weeks of leftovers all stewed together. And then each one of you had said that this includes one of the best examples of some aspect of Jack's humor. So I would say kind of like a Taylor Swift album. The more you listen to it, the more you get out of it. So
that is exactly right.
So there you go.
So many people compare Taylor Swift to Jack Benny. It's a very common thing.
And I'm glad you brought her up because, you know, she and I have so much in common. I'm producing these Imaginaire Theater podcasts now, and she's Taylor Swift. So there
you go. There you go. Yes. And you never know, we might have her on the show sometime. Keep tuning in just in case.
It's why I show up every week.
Exactly. And you're like, well, I've got Daryl. It's close enough. It's all fine. So, anyway, enjoy your week, everybody. And may the 4th be with you.